Well, welcome back to another episode of the Financially Free Journey podcast. And I'm your host, Courtney Dyer. And this podcast aims to dispel the seemingly complex topic of personal finances, money management, debt, savings, investing, retirement, and all things small business. Now, today I am bringing on a guest, Tiffany Paul. And Tiffany is the host of the Dream Life podcast. Gotta love bringing on another fellow podcaster. And on her podcast, she keeps it raw, real conversations weekly about really balancing big dreams and aspirations with your real life. And Tiffany is actually a former unfulfilled corporate employee, the founder of Slept, mom, wife, and she's a big dreamer herself. So get ready to get real. We're going to dream big and we're going to feel good during this interview. So Tiffany, welcome to the program today.
Thank you. I'm so excited. I love chatting with other podcasters because it's like, all right, let's get going. Let's talk. We love to talk.
We are talkers, it's like kindred spirits. So,
yes.
Okay. So tell the listeners a little bit about your journey to becoming a podcast host and why you're so passionate about helping people build their dream life.
Yeah. So I spent 10 years in corporate America. I always thought that would be my dream life. That was my first dream, if you will. And, the longer I existed in that space, I just realized that it wasn't for me. And I really became fascinated with this idea of what society, paints as the picture of living the dream. And here I was, I had the 6-figure salary, the steady job. I was married, 2 kids, a boy and a girl. I mean, it wasn't all perfect. There was infertility, the job obviously was killing my soul. So I'm not saying I'm painting this as society does, right? I had all the things from the outside that should be making me happy. And something was just still missing. And it was so hard to rationalize it because it wasn't logical. Theoretically, I should be happy. And in many ways I was, because money does provide a tremendous amount of freedom. And it allowed me the opportunity to travel and have amazing experiences and start a side business to kind of scratch that itch of wanting more and provide, great childcare for my family. But ultimately, something had to give and I just found myself unhappy and unfulfilled. So I took the leap to be a full-time entrepreneur in 2019. And, again, even that story of like going after your dreams and becoming an entrepreneur it's so glamorized. It's so great and empowering and exciting. And the reality for me was that it was really quite lonely and not as fulfilling as I imagined. And it was a lot of stress. Anybody who has their own business knows it's every little detail you worry about and you take a lot of it personally because it's your baby, it's your dream. And there's this talk about, it's not business, it's personal. But when it's your dream, it's really hard not to take things personal. And so I just wanted to have these real conversations about what it looked like to chase down big dreams. And I love podcasts. That was like my go-to medium to get information and that kind of the inside scoop. So I thought, I'm going to start one of my own. And so when everything went down in 2020 and I was like wondering what to do with my life, I just thought now is the time. And so that's where the Dream Life podcast was born. And it's been amazing to kind of step in and start having these conversations about what does living the dream really look like and get honest about that conversation, the ups and the downs of chasing down big dreams.
Well, and we're not talking about the sarcastic living the dream. We're talking about actually fulfilling your dreams and being able to make that leap from if, your 9-to-5, your corporate job, your current profession or career is not fulfilling. And that's not the case. Some people love that and they have tremendous passion around it. And so not saying one is better than the other, but a lot of times we get painted into this mold where it's like, this is the option. You work a 9-to-5 until you're 65 and then you retire and you have your sunset years and hopefully you saved enough along the way. And so, being able to find out how do you make the leap from the 9-to-5 to being a full-time entrepreneur and to be able to fulfill and build that dream life that you've envisioned for yourself. And so one follow-up question is, how was the leap? Because it's like, a lot of people get stuck in, as you said, money provides freedom and stability, and the comfort of that paycheck that you can count on is extremely hard to leave.
Yeah, it was 100% the hardest thing I ever did in my life. In order to make that leap, so, you hear a lot of the advice that you should make sure your business is kind of making up for at least your expenses, but ideally your income before you leave. When you're making like a high six-figure salary, that's like a pretty like profound business you have to have operating before you leave. So in order to make that happen, I had to downsize my entire life. So that meant like a smaller house, downsizing our cars, our daycare, our, like canceling, like I know things like it's a privileged life, but just getting real because maybe there's other six-figure earners out there, but it's like canceling the massage, membership and the wine club. And I know that may sound obnoxious, but, we talk a lot about eating ramen and sleeping on your parents' floor or whatever, when you're starting a business in the college years. But like, we don't talk enough about what it looks like when you're taking that leap, maybe from a six-figure salary to maybe pivot your career completely and start over, or go back to school or start the business. And it sounds obnoxious, I get it, but it's the reality of it. And when you get used to living with a certain level of comfort and not worrying about the budget and having plenty of savings and doing all the right things, to feeling like, oh my gosh, like I'm on a budget, I can't do the things I once loved and eat at the fancy restaurant or drink the fancy wine, you realize pretty quickly two things. One, just getting honest, like money does buy happiness. And that's another conversation I don't think we have enough, because money buys freedom and it buys a certain level of support if you choose to spend it that way. I've never been one to buy things. I've always been one to buy experiences that enhance my life, support to make my life easier, like a meal delivery service, a gym membership, and all those things help your life run a lot smoother. When you take it all away, it can be extremely stressful financially. So I found it to be one of the hardest things, because I felt like it was coupled with, I had taken away like the security of that money provides, while also trying to chase down my dream. And so I'm actually a huge proponent of bringing in, like having a side hustle, and keeping your job, but find a job that's not killing your soul, or pick up consulting, or go do a part-time job at the bakery, or be a server or bartender or something to help take away that stress of money while you're trying to build your dream. Because to me, that was the hardest part.
Well, and as you said, not a soul crushing, job where every day you feel like the life is leaving you.
Yes.
But, what can also happen in turn is, if all of the stress and pressure is on your business and it needs to provide for you to pay your light bill and your groceries, you can really suck the joy out of your business pretty quick.
100%.
And so being able to have a cushion, and so it's not, don't go chase your dreams. And when people say, well, if you have a plan B, then you don't think plan A will work. That's not the case. We're saying be strategic and plan ahead to make the transition, that gray area that most people never make it into because it's scary. Create a cushion for yourself. So then that way you're not putting all the pressure on your business and you're not sucking the joy from it. And something that you once loved, you now despise, right? Because it's like, I need this to pay my bills. And, I back in my early 20s, I was really into photography, and I started a photography business on the side, right? And at that time, Groupon was still like pretty big, like the cool deal. And I was like, yes. I'm gonna run a Groupon. So I ran a Groupon. Well, I didn't realize that 500 people would buy the Groupon. And I'm like, I should have put a cap on this. By the time I was done fulfilling my Groupons, I said, I'm never going to take another picture in my entire life. And I put my camera back in the box and I didn't pull it out for another 8 years. And it's like, I had sucked the joy out of it. So I think it's like having a really good plan, right? Like, how are you going to make sure that doesn't happen to you?
Yeah.
So,
which, by the way, speaking of Groupon, just yesterday, ironically, I was reminding my husband, like, I didn't come from a lot of money, which also that's what made it so hard, because I like fulfilled my dream of creating a six-figure salary. And I was like, this is the dream, right?
Yeah.
I had all the things that I dreamed of as a child, who grew up very financially insecure, who didn't, grew up in a small town in Minnesota. The power was turned off. Like the landlord was knocking for late rent. Like debt collectors were calling, and my parents like had me answer the phone and told them they're not home. And so that was really hard, but I just wanted to touch on this because as a result, I definitely have in me like this kind of.
Now, are you starting a new business and you might be concerned about using your personal number? Well, for less than $13 per user, you can get a business line with Flex Plans. This is the all-new business phone plan by Virtual PBX. Flex Plans provides unlimited calling, business texting, video conferencing, all for entrepreneurs that need a way to connect with their customers. And it includes a free soft phone, plus it includes 2 free local toll-free numbers, a virtual receptionist, professional greetings, call forwarding, voicemail, text, and just so much more. So right now you can save 15% by visiting virtualpbx.com/podcast. Now that's less than $13 per user for your business line. So separate your private line from your professional line today by visiting virtualpbx.com/podcast.
Budgeter, right? Let's get as most out of my money as I can. And so my whole business, my whole wedding, going back to like early days of just making money, I always had this dream of this beautiful wedding, but I wasn't quite there financially and my parents didn't have a lot of help. So I 100% used Groupon for like everything in my wedding. And I used it for the limo. And the day of my wedding, they literally called and they were like, somebody stole the limo.
No.
But they didn't they didn't tell me this because I was the bride. And I literally we didn't have like a limo the day of, because honestly, I think it was just because it was Groupon and probably somebody had too many Groupons and somebody like came in and paid full price. I don't think somebody actually stole a limo, but I don't know. I wanted to touch on that because I feel like, we all go through these stages of money in life, and just accepting where you're at and just embracing like, hey, I can have my dream wedding. It just means I have to go to Groupon. And like, I found, like, I live in Southern California. I got married in Los Angeles. I found like the tiniest, most affordable flowers, like 2 hours inland. I don't know why it was such a good deal, but like I just went to all measures to like save $1, and I had the most beautiful wedding. And so I don't know, I just feel like I wanted to bring that up because just to highlight that we all go on this like money journey from being a child to like getting married and figuring out how you're going to have the dream wedding when you're not there yet. And then making the 6-figure salary and then downsizing and being on a budget again. And, it's so interesting. It's painted so linear, but it's really not.
Oh, it's not. Yeah, there's ebbs and flows to it. And most people envision the trajectory to continue to be upward, right? Like the side of a mountain, and it continues to go up. But a lot of times when you are not settling for complacency and you're wanting to fulfill dreams or passions and make a sidestep, you're going to see a lot of ebbs and flows, ups and downs, right? And it's going to look like a big check mark maybe, but creating a cushion, having the right mindset is going to be critical to helping you get there. And that takes me to my next question I wanted to ask you, because you interview a lot of people that have made transitions and they're building that dream life. So what have you seen as like the worst mistake that people make when they're trying to make that positive change in their life and build that dream life? Like what's a mistake that maybe the listeners can look out for?
I think the biggest one is this pressure to go so fast. And we hear this advice so often because it's like, be first to market or, hustle your way there. And the problem with going too fast is that you oftentimes trade the quality of your life here and now. And that's really at the heart and soul of the Dream Life podcast, is that creating your dream life. I mean, it's right there in the title. It's about your life. It's about how you spend each and every day. And so I love business. I love hustling. I love work. And so sometimes that is filling me up and energizing me. So it's not saying you can't have a long work day or follow like a bolt of inspiration or the energy if it's there, but it's just being really mindful that you can go slow. And good things and brands that last are built over time. And with the internet and like this idea of overnight successes or comparing yourself to somebody else, it puts this pressure on us to go so fast. And from a lot of my conversations, when I do see certain founders or businesses really take off or hit these milestones quicker than others. For example, a brand that might be in Target the first year, whereas maybe a small business has been working for 10 years to get into Target. The two things that I see that accelerate growth and ability to hit a milestone faster than another is not hard work. It is connections and money. If you dig deep enough, usually if somebody's done something extraordinarily fast, it's because either they raised millions of dollars, they came from money, they have a lot of money themselves, or they just knew somebody. And there's nothing wrong with those things. But I think sometimes we think that if we just work hard enough, we can get into Target in year one. And that's just not the reality. And you put so much pressure on yourself and you actually take away from the present moment and the life that you're currently living. So I think when you just release any timelines and release this pressure to go fast and just trust that if this is your dream, then you want to spend your whole life building it anyways. So what's the rush? The only rush and pressure is usually money, right? So going back to the first point, where it's like if you can't pay the bills, then maybe an easier option is to go get a side job, a consulting gig, put your services up on Upwork so that you can bring in some extra income so you can give yourself permission to go slowly. And that's exactly what I did when I was faced with that decision. I got a consulting opportunity that paid my bills so I could give myself permission to go slowly so I could have a quality of life and actually enjoy my dream.
I love that's an actionable piece of advice, right? Is, you can become a consultant, you can do freelance work, you can go to places like Upwork and Fiverr, you can be a consultant, you can do, digital services where you still have time freedom, right? But you're having some cushion, like we've talked about. And I wanted to go back and touch on, because you said, to not go too fast. And we're in this digital age with social media where, again, it's like so overused, but we're seeing everybody's highlight reel and people aren't sharing how long they actually were working on this goal, right? And when you think about connections and money, that's like comparing apples to oranges, right? I mean, if you, there's a pretty prominent mommy blogger in the state that I live in, and she has a clothing line and it's gotten into like a pretty big department store. And, you see a lot of these small business boutiques where it's like they've started their own clothing line and they're nowhere near being in a big box, high-end department store. But then you look back and you see, okay, well, were your parents millionaires when you started? Did they, do capital contributions into your business? Is your husband rich? These are real things. And again, it's like Kylie Jenner, right? I mean, great example. She built a $1 billion empire, but she also has connections and money.
Right.
So, which is fantastic for her. I mean, that's not saying, she still did build that. Not everybody in her position has been able to do what she has. Same with the example of the mommy blogger. Not everybody that came from money is able to do that. So that's great for them, but don't compare yourself because it's apples and oranges. And so the journey is going to look very different for you.
Yes, I was just at a Colby Calais concert last night, and my husband knows that my theory on these people, it's connections and going fast. And she was talking about how she loved to write songs, and then her neighbor was a producer. So her dad,
interesting.
Yeah, so her dad brought her to the recording studio at his house or something, and suddenly, she blew up. But Colby she's a fucking pro. Like, she is so talented. So it's not dismissing their hard work. And that just kicked off her journey. It wasn't like you're made. That's the other thing I've realized from being an entrepreneur for 10 years. It's like I've had big moments of like being on Good Morning America and being in Vogue and, speaking at big events. And none of it makes your career. It's not one thing. It's just time. It's the fact that you continually take one step in front of the other. And sometimes it's easy to see like, oh, this big splashy thing happened and you think they've made it. It's not the case at all. And so sure, Colby Calais had a few pops, but she had to continually make good music, show up, be responsible, do all the things to have an entire career. But so it's not discounting their work. It's just acknowledging that, like you said, when you see success online, you have no idea how long they've been doing it, how much money is behind it, and where they're connected. So it's like literally a complete waste of energy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's like, you know what? You can't focus on the things you can't control. You can't control the success and the outcome of other people. You can maybe take some pointers, and that's another thing is that comparison trap that we fall into, specifically as women. I think we're really prone to it. And it really ties into some imposter syndrome because you'll see individuals that are in your sphere of genius and you're like, wow, they're so much more advanced than me. When in reality, they feel that way about other individuals too. And so you have to take a step back and say, okay, I'm not going to fall into the trap of comparing myself to everyone else because no one's journey is mirrored and looks the same exact.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring it back to the Colby Calais concert because she also said in another song, she was like, this is a song about how we are literally all so insecure all the time and worrying about what other people think, no matter what level you get to. She's like, I was sitting in a room with all these, important, accomplished people, and everybody still worries about what other people think of them. And so that's been coming up a lot lately, just in whatever I'm consuming. And I think it's important for me and maybe the listeners to hear that because I think sometimes you think, oh, I just have to get past this. I have to stop comparing and stop worrying and stop stressing. And maybe we never stop worrying and maybe we never stop stressing and maybe we just own that we're humans and it's going to continually come up. And just to have our logical brain step in and remind us that it's not a fair comparison and then just move past it because I think it's going to continually rise up at every level. Like there's going to be somebody else to compare yourself to. So just accepting it's just part of life. And even Colby Calais feels insecure,
That's again, it's just being aware, right? Yeah. And as you said, it's human nature. And so again, it's not faulting yourself like, oh, I'm comparing again. I mean, of course, it's like, we'll try not to. And if I do, I'm going to be aware and say, okay, they're different than me. Maybe I can use some pointers from what they've done. But even if people as accomplished as Colby Calais is worried about that and saying, hey, I compare myself to others and I worry what they think about me. It's human nature, unfortunately. So it's going to be the fall of our society. So
yeah, and I always say it's like if you're feeling jealousy or like a little bit of negativity around somebody's accomplishments, that's usually just a sign that that's something your heart desires in some way, shape, or form. And so it can be a good thing. Like if you're seeing something and it's kind of bothering you, it may just be telling you something you want. And I think that's good because I feel like so many people are like, I don't even know what I want or what is my big dream. And if you start paying attention to those pings of maybe jealousy of maybe somebody online that maybe it's not the full picture, but it's something you desire, it could be information as to something that is a calling on your heart. And also on Instagram, if I ever feel that way, I always will like the photo.
So let's take just a minute to talk about this episode's sponsor, Hidden Compass. Hidden Compass is pretty cool, guys. It's not your normal run-of-the-mill travel magazine where they're going to tell you what to go buy or where to take a selfie, but it's more of a place to find courage and curiosity. It's inspired by the farm-to-table movement, and they are making journalism personal. They have forged an alliance to turn storytellers and explorers into heroes and to champion a new age of discovery. So to learn more about Hidden Compass and their mission, take a look at their website. It's hiddencompass.net. And there you'll be able to read more about their award-winning magazine, and they have a podcast, which is easy to find. It's called Hidden Compass, the podcast. And Sabine and Savani, they are the narrators of the stories for their award-winning magazine. And then they go behind the scenes and interviews with each of the storytellers to see what inspired them to venture to the frontiers of courage and curiosity. So make sure to go check out Hidden Compass at hiddencompass.net.
Yourself is such an underrated conversation. I mean, there's so many like courses and programs and teachers out there. So I'm not saying it's not talked about, but I think, we look at how much money we spend on just our lifestyle. And then if you look at the money you spent on yourself, you're like, oh, I spent $100 on like a course or like the gym. You're like, cool, done. So you've invested $150 in yourself that month. I just think that investing in yourself, whatever that looks like, to make you feel more confident, to reconnect you back to yourself, to do some healing, maybe it's therapy, maybe it's working with a coach, maybe it's a new outfit, like whatever it is, investing in yourself. You can't always see the ROI on paper paper. But I think every time I've invested in myself, I've always found myself rising to that next level. And the other piece of advice I've gotten that I just love, because it goes against the traditional metrics. I know you share all the traditional ones. So first and foremost, listen to Courtney. She's the money expert.
I paid her, guys.
Yeah, no, but I'm trying to think of advice that is truly outside the box. And that's what, again, the Dream Life podcast is all about, where it's like, let's expand our awareness and the way we live our lives. And we do need to do things traditionally. And we do need to acknowledge that money is here to keep us safe. And there are better returns on investment than others. But there are also these like nuances, this gray area of how you invest your money. And I think investing in yourself is one. And the other advice I heard once, somebody on a podcast said this, and it really gave me permission to do the same. The advice was, sometimes you can just invest in something because you think it will be fun.
Yeah.
And I liked that advice because, again, I'm not a material person. So I didn't take that advice and say, I'm going to go buy a BMW because it would be fun. But maybe you just want to have an experience, a concert. Maybe you want to upgrade to like the front row of the concert because it would just be fun. Maybe financially it would make more sense to sit in the back, but maybe every once in a while, just invest because it would feel fun.
Well, and again, it's understanding what you envision for your life, how you want to feel, the experiences that you want to have, and being able to make decisions to invest in yourself that connects to that. And it doesn't always have to be business focused or finance focused. It can be for joy. I mean, and that's the purpose of this life. And so I think it's really important just to take it way back up to the overarching, umbrella here, which is understanding your why. What is your big dream? Because when it comes time to invest in yourself and what that looks like for you, ask yourself, okay, 5 years from now, will this tie into that big dream that I feel for myself, that I envision? Or is this something that's maybe fleeting and it doesn't necessarily connect? So this isn't, the right, financial decision to make. So I think that's really critical too. But I love that it doesn't have to always be business focused, learning a new skill. It can simply be for happiness.
Yes. And I think, we talked about this when you were on my podcast about, if your car was invisible, would you still want it type of thing? Yeah. Where it's like, when you think about fun and what would feel good, it's really connecting to like your heart and soul. It's not just like, oh, it would be fun to look cool. Yeah. It would be fun to drive the fancy car. It's deeper than that. It's like, this would be an amazing experience to look back on in life. Like you mentioned, this is a true heart desire of mine. So I'm going to go for it. Like, I tell my husband all the time, he's always like looking for new hobbies. He's like, wants to invest in learning how to be a boat captain. I'm like, do it. Like, we don't even have a boat.
And then he could wear that little hat. I mean, that sounds like a great idea.
Right. It doesn't make any logical sense, right? We don't even have a boat.
Captain.
But it's like he would think it would be fun. And I'm like, yes. And like, I've been thinking about doing tap dancing. I haven't gotten around to it. I've been busy with the podcast, but it's like, just sometimes invest in things because it's fun and it doesn't make any sense.
So Tiffany, wait a minute, because I'm getting a visual. You're going to be tap dancing while your husband is the captain of your boat. You know what? I mean, the life you live in Southern California, I'm taken back right now. No, I love that because again, it's skills, it's activities. Those are also experiences. And we did talk about this on your podcast is, investing in making purchases that bring memories and experiences versus material things. Because those are, after the fleeting dopamine of making a purchase, like buying a new pair of shoes or a purse, that only lasts like a couple minutes and then, you're looking for your next hit. But when you are buying experiences or, skills or different hobbies, those are things that you continue to experience, going forward in your life. So, but I won't get that visual out of my head of you, doing your flaps, in your tap shoes and your husband with his, captain captain's hat.
See, that'll be me on my deathbed, like remembering the experiences I created, tap dancing on a boat.
Absolutely.
Like, who can say they did that? I mean, now it has to be a goal. So now I have to tell him, you better get taking those boat lessons because now it's in my mind. And I gotta sign up for tapping.
The TikTok videos that could come out of that are top notch. So
I'm here for it.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about your podcast. I think that the listeners have a pretty good idea about the Dream Life podcast. I mean, it's amazing, guys. I've gone back and I've listened to several episodes, and some of the guests that you have on there just have amazing perspectives, and you get a lot of well-rounded information when you're tuning into your podcast, which I really appreciate as well.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I try to keep it diverse because our dreams are diverse. Our dream life is diverse. So I try to spend time talking to entrepreneurs and also, spiritual and like thought leaders and moms and just all the things, because I feel like our dream life it makes up so many different facets of our lives. And so I want a little bit of something for everybody. And really, I want to call out because you mentioned earlier, know your why. And one of the things I talk a lot on the Dream Life podcast is know your what, as in like, what do you actually want to do in life? And I want to go there because sometimes when we talk about the why, it's like this far off thing. Like, I want financial freedom and I want, to make an impact and change the world and whatever, have a mansion. But if you really get down to like, what is it you actually want to do? It's the most simple form of really creating your dream life. And so I try to bring on guests that are like just doing things that they love. And I think creating your dream life is as simple as that. It's not always, it is why you're doing it is important, but it's really like bringing it down to present moment. What do you actually want to do? Like, what is on your heart? And just creating a life that you love looks like doing more of what you love. So yeah, that's the podcast really is. It's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit of business. It's a little bit of, connecting to heart versus head. It's a little bit of spirituality if you're into that. It's a little bit of everything, just kind of challenging us to see things at a different perspective and also reconnect to ourselves, because only we can create our dream lives. Only we know what we want to do, what we should do next. And ultimately, it's putting the power back in your hands, our own hands, versus, somebody telling you what you should do. And I think society's been telling us what we should do for a long time, like looping back to how we started, right? Society's been telling us this is the dream. This is what will make you happy. And I think it's clear, like it's all falling apart, right? Like, look at the state of the world. Yeah. And when we just rely on ourselves first and foremost, the episode I released today was like the fall of the guru and the rise of you. And I think just taking back our power over our own life. And although we have like so many massive problems that we have going on in the world, we're not going to make the change we want when we're just exhausted and miserable and burnt out in our own lives. So as cliche as it sounds, true change starts with you. Like, stop trying to fix the world until you can actually look at your own life and feel like, I feel energized and so in love with the life I'm living. Because from that energy, you're going to inspire others to do the same. And then eventually, we're all going to be able to come together to tackle the big worlds. But from the state of overwhelm, exhaustion, shoulds, and doing what we think we, should, we're not going to solve the world's problems. Oh, I went off on so many different tangents.
No, but you know what? I wrote down the fall of the guru and the rise of you. I absolutely love that because, that's another, aspect of this conversation is how do you even identify what your big dream is? Because we have been living in a society now with the rise of social media more than ever, it seems like we're having a loss of identity where it's like, what do I want? Because we're so inundated with data, with pictures, with videos of what everyone across the world is doing. Every celebrity we know, everybody we went to high school with, everyone you've ever worked with, and everybody has different aspirations and dreams. And, it maybe my, neighbor from 10 years ago, her dream was to go on a cruise to Hawaii. But that's not a dream of mine. Well, now that I'm seeing it online, it's like, I haven't freaking been on a cruise to Hawaii. I got to book that now, right? And we lose sight of our true dream and what we want. And so I love that it's like the rise of you and identifying your big dream and not just understanding your why, but also your what, because that's what puts it into action. That's what gets the ball rolling, right?
Yes.
On taking this big metaphor and idea and putting it into action so you can make that change in your life. So I appreciate you coming on today. And I mean, I feel like we can have tons of conversations and follow-up. So we're probably just going to have to continue this on. But where can the listeners find you? Of course, I'm going to tag the podcast in the show notes, but is there anywhere else that they can hook up with you?
Yeah. So besides Dream Life with Tiffany Paul is my pod. You can find me on Instagram, Tiffany Nicole Paul. And I'm going to be showing up there more like doing IG lives. I've been really working hard at getting my podcast off the ground and getting amazing guests. And I just now reducing my solo episodes from 2 weekly to 1. So you can find me on Instagram at Tiffany Nicole Paul.
Awesome. Well, guys, I will link her Instagram, Tiffany Nicole Paul, and I will also link the podcast so that way you can go and you can dive into those episodes. And it's just really amazing, raw, real conversations, which I think we all appreciate these days, right? Instead of just the hyper curated perfection. And so I really appreciate that about what Tiffany's putting out there. And of course, guys, if you haven't already, make sure that you're following us on Instagram and TikTok. It's at Financially Free Journey. And I post daily tips and motivation and videos to help you on your journey to achieving financial freedom. Until next time.